The first time Commander Hale saw Princess of, he thought she looked like a star trying to live inside a fragile body. Her skin carried a soft silver glow as if moonlight lived beneath it. Her eyes shimmered with shifting colors, violet, turquoise, and bright gold, never staying still for more than a heartbeat. She looked delicate, almost breakable, yet everyone around her bowed with fear and respect. Power lived in her presence. Grief lived there too. Had been sent with the diplomatic team to rescue what remained of her people after a cosmic disaster destroyed half of their. He expected cold protocol, formal introductions, and polite distance. But when she stepped down from the landing platform, she didn't look at any of the high-ranking humans waiting for her. She only looked at him. Her gaze held a strange softness, like she recognized something in him. Didn't understand it, but he didn't look away. The wind was sharp that morning, carrying the dust of the ruined valley and the faint metallic scent of burned ships. The sky was pale and empty. Everything felt tired, quiet, wounded. Princess walked toward with slow steps, her long mantle dragging across cracked stone. Her guards tensed, but she lifted a hand to silence them. Her expression was unreadable at first, calm but searching. Then a fragile hope flickered across her face, and it hit him like sunlight. "You came," she whispered. Blinked. "I did not know you expected me, Your Highness." "I didn't expect," she replied softly. "I wished." Her words confused him, but before he could respond, the ground trembled slightly. Not enough to be a threat, but enough to remind everyone of the recent destruction. Dust rose in thin clouds, drifting around them like ghosts of what had been lost. Her people watched her carefully, their faces pale from exhaustion. Rumors said she had lost her mother, her brothers, and almost her entire royal guard in the collapse of their capital. She had not cried in public once. She had not spoken of grief at all. She had carried her people through fire with silence and strength. But when she stood in front of, her eyes softened in a way no one had seen before. "You helped my people when no one else would," she said. "Humans saved survivors we believed gone forever. For that, I owe a debt. I repay debts with my heart." "I was only doing my duty," answered, uncomfortable with the intensity in her voice. "No," she whispered, "you were kind." A quiet sadness wrapped around her words. Swallowed, suddenly unsure how to act. He had faced war zones, hostile planets, and dangerous alien wildlife, but nothing had prepared him for the fragile honesty of an alien princess looking at him like he mattered. The air changed. A cold gust swept across the landing site. The princess's mantle fluttered like a banner in a storm. Her breath shook slightly, so small a tremor that no one else noticed, but did. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the tiny silver freckles across her cheeks, luminescent little stars. Her voice dropped to a whisper only he could hear. "I am tired of losing everyone." She didn't ask for comfort. She didn't beg for safety. She only confessed a truth she had carried alone. Felt something tighten in his chest. He opened his mouth to respond, but the sky suddenly crackled with a deep echo. Not thunder, not a quake, something else. Human soldiers raised their weapons. Her guards formed a shield wall around them. Didn't move, her gaze stayed locked on him. Another rumble shook the valley. Fear flickered across her beautiful face. It was the first time had seen her afraid. Instinct moved him before thought. He stepped in front of her. A protective act, simple, automatic, human. Her breath caught. A soft gasp escaped her. Slowly, as if following a decision that had lived inside her for far longer than this moment, Princess reached out. Her hands trembled, not with fear but with relief, and she wrapped her arms around him. Not gently, not politely, like someone who had finally found the one thing she refused to lose again. Gasps erupted from both species. Her guards froze. The ambassadors stared in shock, but held him firmly, pressing her forehead lightly against his chest. "This one," she whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear, her voice shaking with emotion. "I choose this human. He is mine to protect and mine to trust." Stood frozen, not sure what had just begun, but feeling in his bones that the universe would not be the same after this. Had faced battlefields before. He had walked through broken cities, helped civilians flee burning homes, and rescued wounded soldiers under heavy fire. But nothing in his entire life had prepared him for the moment Princess held on to him as if he were the last steady thing in a collapsing universe. Her arms around him felt light, almost weightless, yet the meaning behind that embrace felt heavy, too heavy for a single heartbeat to hold. Everyone around them stood in silence. No one breathed loudly. Even the wind seemed to pause as if unsure how to move between two lives suddenly bound by a single decision. When finally loosened her hold, her hands slid down his arms slowly, unwilling to let go completely. Her strange, shimmering eyes studied him, searching, almost questioning whether he would step away. "Didn't. Your Highness," he said carefully, "what does this mean?" The princess blinked once, her glow flickering softly. "It means what I said. I chose you." Her people exchanged worried glances. Human officers whispered among themselves. But she stayed calm, as if this was the first time in many days she felt safe enough to breathe. Exhaled slowly, "Princess, I'm honored, but—" "You think I claimed your body?" she asked gently. He flushed, shaking his head. "No, of course not." His voice turned quiet, layered with sadness and strength. "I claimed your courage." Her words hit him harder than any weapon. Before he could respond, the ground trembled again, this time sharper, like something massive shifting beneath the valley floor. Human soldiers tightened formation. Guards activated their glowing shields. Inhaled sharply. "Not now," she whispered, fear mixing with frustration. Stepped closer. "What's happening?" The princess hesitated, then answered with honesty she rarely gave anyone. "Something survived the destruction of our capital, something old." She pointed toward the distant mountain ridge. "It should not still be alive." Felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. "And it's coming." No, her gaze locked with his. "It is calling." Her people stiffened. Even the guards, trained for war, looked unsettled by her words. A human lieutenant ran up to, voice urgent. "Commander, sensors are reading deep resonance under the valley. Something huge. Moving. We need to relocate the princess immediately." Princess' jaw tightened. "We are not running." "With respect," the lieutenant said, "your safety." "My safety depends on him," gestured toward without looking away from him. "He is the only one the creature will not attack." Stared at her. "Why me?" Her expression softened with painful truth. "Because you are human, and humans were never part of the war that created that monster." A heavy silence settled over the landing site. Had heard about the ancient conflicts of stories filled with cosmic weapons, forgotten creatures, and technology powerful enough to wound entire planets. But he hadn't expected any piece of that terrible history to still breathe. Stepped closer, her voice low. "I did not choose you for politics. I chose you because the moment I saw you step forward to shield me, I knew you would do it again." Her hands trembled. "I have lost everyone who ever stood in front of me." Her confession cut deeper than battle wounds. Swallowed. "Princess, I'm just one man." "You are one man who did not turn away." She lifted her chin, regal even in fear. "That makes you stronger than armies." Soldiers on both sides exchanged uneasy looks. Some seemed moved, others seemed confused, but no one dared interrupt. Another tremor rolled through the valley, long, low, and filled with a strange, pulsating rhythm. His glow dimmed, her skin reacting instinctively to danger. Stepped beside her again. "What do you need from me?" The princess looked at him with a mix of relief and guilt. "I need someone who can walk toward the mountain without being destroyed, someone the creature does not see as an enemy." "You're asking me to go alone." Shook her head slowly. "No," she reached out, taking his hand with gentle fingers. "I am going with you." "Froze, but your people will survive if I stop the creature." Her eyes filled with a quiet determination that felt older than her years. "And I cannot let you face danger alone after choosing you." He felt warmth where her hand touched his, a strange, unfamiliar warmth that wasn't human. It wasn't romantic, nor was it possessive. It was protective, loyal, and full of a desperate hope she had carried too long alone. A hope she had now placed on him, nodded slowly. All right, we go together. A breath of relief escaped her, soft and trembling. Squeezed his hand once as if anchoring herself to him. Then the creature will listen, her voice lowered, or it will die trying. The valley rumbled again, tightened his grip, and together, human and alien princess, they took their first step toward the mountain that waited, awake and hungry. The path to the mountain was uneven and littered with debris from long-forgotten battles. Walked carefully, scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. Every now and then, his hand brushed against Princess, a silent acknowledgement that neither would walk alone. The bond between them was unspoken, yet powerful, a human instinct to protect and an alien instinct to trust that protection. As they climbed higher, the air grew thin and the wind colder. Silver dust from the mountain's crags swirled around them, catching the dim sunlight and making the world shimmer. His cloak fluttered like a banner, her glow faint against the pale sky. She moved with grace, but noticed her breathing was uneven. The climb was harder for her than she let anyone see, yet she refused to stop. Each step carried both determination and the weight of expectation. "You should rest," suggested, keeping his eyes on her. "We're not far, but even strong people need a moment." "I can't," she replied, voice tight. "If I stop, it might see us. If I stop, it might think I am weak." Frowned, humans fought for survival, for honor, for comrades. But this was different. This creature was ancient, more like a force of nature than a living being, and yet walked toward it without hesitation. They reached a ridge where the wind was strongest. The valley below was small now, distant. Shadows moved oddly along the ground like the mountain itself was alive, stopped and looked down. Her eyes reflected fear, awe, and something couldn't name. "It's awake," she whispered. Studied the landscape. At first he saw nothing unusual. Then the rocks began to shift, not crumble or fall, move. They rose and twisted, forming shapes that looked alive. The air vibrated with a low hum that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. The princess gripped his arm lightly, grounding herself. "It knows we are here," she said, "and it knows me." "Knows you?" asked unease creeping in. "Yes," she replied. "It knows the bloodline. My ancestors fought it once, and it remembers." She looked at him, her glowing eyes wide with a mixture of fear and trust. "But it does not know you. That is why it will not harm you if I am with you." Nodded, though the logic made little sense. Humans were reasoning creatures, yet some truths could not be explained. They could only be faced. The ground trembled again. This time, the vibration traveled up their legs and through their bones. Instinctively shifted in front of his body a shield even though he didn't know what it would protect against. She smiled faintly at him, a soft expression that lit up her tired face. "You're human," she said, "and humans carry courage that others forget. That courage, it will help us." They continued climbing, each step heavier than the last. The mountain grew taller, its peak hidden in clouds. Lightning-like streaks of energy danced across the craggy ridges, illuminating the sheer scale of the ancient creature that stirred beneath. Could feel the heat radiating up, a subtle yet oppressive energy that pressed against their skin. Suddenly, a low, guttural sound echoed through the mountain. Not roar, not growl, something between thought and warning. His hand tightened on his arm. "It is testing me," she whispered. "It senses my strength, my hesitation, my choice to protect you." Looked at her, realizing the depth of her claim. She had not chosen him for politics, not for diplomacy, but for something deeper. For instinct, for trust, for hope. "I'm right here," he said, his voice firm. "We face it together." She nodded, her glow brightening slightly, feeding off the certainty in his tone. The mountain trembled again, and dust cascaded down the slopes like rainfall. Shapes emerged from the rocky surface, massive, serpentine forms of stone and energy. Their movements were slow but deliberate, each step shaking the ground beneath their feet. Noticed something remarkable. The creature did not strike at him. Its glowing eyes followed, yet it paused when he moved into her shadow. The bond she had formed with him seemed to extend even to the ancient being. Took a deep breath, stepping forward. "We do this together," she said, voice carrying a mixture of fear and command. "Stay close, trust me as I trust you." Adjusted his stance, hand brushing hers. "Always," he said. The first full step toward the awakening creature had been taken. And as the mountain groaned and the world trembled, both human and alien realized the journey ahead was not just about survival. It was about courage, choice, and the unspoken promise between them that nothing could break. The creature waited at the edge of a jagged cliff, its enormous body coiled among shattered rocks, its eyes like molten suns. Shadows twisted across its form, reflecting the faint shimmer of Princess' skin. Felt the ground quiver beneath his boots, a trembling that seemed almost alive. The air was thick with power, the kind that made a man's pulse race and his instincts scream to retreat. But retreat was impossible. Stepped forward without hesitation. Her glowing hands stretched toward the creature, the energy rippling around her like a soft halo. "I am of," she called, her voice echoing in the empty mountain valley. "You remember my people, you remember my line, you will not harm what I protect." The monster stirred, a deep vibration rolling through the ground. Its massive head lifted slowly, eyes locking on the princess second. It growled, not with anger, but with recognition, as though it understood what had happened generations ago. Swallowed hard, he had trained for combat, for negotiations with alien species, and for extreme survival scenarios. Yet nothing prepared him for this, a being that seemed to test not with force, but with memory, expectation, and judgment. He stepped closer to, "What does it want?" he asked quietly. Her hands didn't waver. "It wants to know if I am worthy, if I am strong enough to lead and protect my people." Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the enormity of the moment. "And it senses your courage. It cannot harm you because you are mine to shield." His chest tightened. He wasn't used to being called someone's protector in such a cosmic sense. Every mission, every battlefield had been tactical, precise, controlled. But this was raw emotion, tied to survival, loyalty, and trust. The creature lunged suddenly, not with claws or teeth, but with a wave of energy that made the rocks around them vibrate violently. Shifted instinctively, her glow flaring as she met the pulse head-on. Pushed himself in front of her, catching the edge of the blast against his shoulder. The shock rattled him, pain flashing through his body, but he stayed upright. She cried, her voice a mixture of fear and command. "I'm fine," he shouted back, teeth gritted against the ache. "Stay focused." Her eyes softened as she watched him, almost in awe. Then she lifted her hands higher, letting a steady stream of energy flow toward the creature. It recoiled, not with retreat, but with hesitation. The monster was massive, ancient, terrifying, but it paused when it sensed their bond, their unity. Realized something vital. The creature did not see as a leader until it saw her with him. Human courage had become a bridge between the alien princess and her ancestral guardian. The ground shook again as the monster tested them further. Hands glowed brighter and instinctively mirrored her movements, his own energy from fear and determination pulsing outward. Together, their combined presence formed a subtle shield, a barrier of trust and courage that even the ancient being seemed unable to penetrate. For a moment they stood frozen in the storm of trembling rocks and energy pulses. His hair floated around her like liquid silver, her eyes never leaving the creature. "You cannot have my people," she whispered, voice steady but low. "Not while I draw breath, not while I stand with him." Felt the heat of her words, a force stronger than any weapon. He could feel the raw emotion, the fierce loyalty, and he realized the truth she had quietly told him earlier. Humans were dangerous, not because of strength, but because of heart. The courage to stand when hope seemed gone, the instinct to protect without hesitation, that was what made them formidable. The creature reared its massive head, energy crackling like a storm around its form. But it did not attack again. Instead, it shifted, lowering its gaze toward, then back to. Its posture changed from threat to watchful, as if testing whether they were worthy. His chest rose and fell rapidly, exhaustion visible now in her trembling frame. Stepped closer, brushing her arm with his hand. "We can do this," he whispered. Her eyes glimmered with gratitude. "Because you are here," she admitted softly. Together, standing shoulder to shoulder, human and alien princess faced the monster. The wind roared around them, stones trembled, and the mountains seemed to breathe. And in that moment, the impossible felt possible. The power of trust, courage, and bond shaping the fate of two species in a single heartbeat. The winds grew sharper as and Princess pressed higher into the mountain pass. Each step crunched against jagged rocks, sending shards of stone scattering down the steep slopes. The air was thin, biting at their lungs, but neither hesitated. The creature's presence loomed behind them, a silent tension that vibrated through the ground. Every nerve in his body screamed alert, yet he felt calmer than he had in years, because was close, her hand lightly brushing his as they walked. "Do you ever doubt yourself?" he asked quietly, almost afraid to break the fragile rhythm of their steps. His eyes shimmered faintly, reflecting the shifting light of the mountain. "Every day," she admitted. "I have lost so much. I have led people who could not survive without me, and yet I survive because I must." His chest tightened. He had seen determination before, soldiers pushing past pain, civilians fighting to survive, but this was different. This was someone carrying the weight of an entire world, yet choosing to reach out to him, a single human, and trusting him with her life. A sudden tremor ran beneath their boots, sharper than before. Dust and pebbles cascaded down the cliffs like a miniature avalanche. The creature stirred nearby, sensing them, aware of every heartbeat. His hand tightened around his. "We are close," she said. "We cannot falter now." Nodded. "We won't. I'm with you." Her gaze softened briefly, a faint smile ghosting across her glowing face. It was the first moment of warmth he had seen from her in hours of tension. "Thank you," she whispered. The path narrowed into a precarious ledge that clung to the mountainside like a fragile ribbon. Below, the valley stretched into shadow, and above, jagged peaks pierced the pale sky. Each step demanded careful attention, yet notice that moved with confidence, almost as if the mountain itself recognized her presence. They reached a plateau where the creature awaited fully revealed. Its form was massive, undulating like liquid stone and energy combined. Eyes like molten fire tracked every motion. For a moment, both human and princess froze, staring at the sheer scale of the being. His instincts screamed to flee, to seek cover, but he could not leave her. Took a deep breath. "It will allow passage," she said, her voice steady, though her hands shook slightly, "because it trusts me to protect you." Swallowed, realizing that the bond between them had extended beyond words. It was no longer a mere embrace or a claim. It had become a shield of instinct and loyalty that even an ancient creature respected. "Do you trust it?" he asked, his eyes scanning the monster's enormous form. "I trust myself," she replied, "and because I trust myself, I trust you." With that, she stepped forward, her glow intensifying, illuminating the rocky plateau. Followed closely, feeling a surge of courage he had never known. Together, they moved past the creature, whose eyes followed them but made no move to attack. Each step felt heavier than the last, yet lighter somehow, like crossing a threshold not just of danger but of understanding. A sudden energy pulse surged from the monster, brushing against them like a tidal wave. Felt it through his bones, yet he held his position, anchoring himself with determination. Mirrored him, her aura flaring to meet the force. It was a test, the final measure of courage and trust. "Don't let go," she whispered, barely audible. "I won't," he replied firmly. The pulse passed, leaving silence in its wake. The monster's eyes softened, almost imperceptibly, acknowledging their resolve. For the first time, the valley felt still. The tremors subsided. The wind calmed, and for a brief, breathtaking moment, the impossible seemed possible. Human and alien, standing together, facing a force older than worlds, yet unbroken. Turned to him, her face radiant with exhaustion and triumph. "You've held me up," she said softly, "even when I could not stand alone." Shook his head, amazed. "No, you held me. You gave me courage I didn't know I had." Her smile widened, faint but glowing. "Then we are even." They lingered on the plateau for a moment, catching their breath, feeling the connection that had carried them through every tremor, every pulse, every test. Realized then that this journey had not been about defeating the creature. It had been about discovering trust, courage, and the quiet strength of being chosen. The mountain was still alive with energy, but the danger had shifted. Now, it was not just survival that awaited them, but understanding. And in that understanding, felt a bond he could not unsee, a claim made not in possession, but in mutual strength. Ready to move forward? Asked, her voice steady, the first true command she had given in hours. Nodded, gripping her hand firmly. With you always. And together they stepped toward the heart of the mountain, where fate waited and legends were born. The plateau gave way to a narrow tunnel carved deep into the mountain, the walls glowing faintly with energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. Dust hung in the air, shimmering against the light that seemed almost alive. Led the way cautiously, but he kept one hand brushing against Princess. He had learned that staying close wasn't just instinct. It was survival, a tether neither could afford to lose. His eyes glowed softly in the dim light, reflecting worry and determination at the same time. The heart is close, she whispered. It waits for those who dare enter. Swallowed, and if it decides we are not worthy. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer to him, her hand tightening around his. Then we will face it together, she said. But we will not fail, not because we are invincible, because we trust each other. Her words struck him deeply. Humans relied on strength, strategy, and training. Aliens relied on intuition, history, and power. But here, together, they relied on something else. Courage born from trust, a bond forged not in battle alone, but in choice and loyalty. The tunnel opened into a cavern vast enough to hide a small city. Stalactites hung like jagged teeth from the ceiling. In the center, a glowing core of energy throbbed, radiating warmth and danger at the same time. The ancient creature slithered around it, enormous coils of stone and energy undulating slowly, every movement resonating through the cavern floor. Its eyes watched them, brilliant and aware. His boots crunched on the stone. He could feel the vibrations with every step, each pulse testing his balance and resolve. His hand stayed in his, her glow pulsing with rhythm that matched the creature's heartbeat. It is judging us, she said quietly. Not our strength, our hearts, our courage. Swallowed hard, thinking about all the battles he had survived. Guns, fire, falling debris, none of it had prepared him for this. Not a single tactic or skill could stand against judgment that weighed soul against soul. But as he glanced he felt a certainty he had never known. Whatever happened, they would face it together. The creature's massive head lifted and its gaze fixed on First. It seemed to bow slightly, acknowledging her bloodline. Then it turned its eyes toward him, felt a wave of heat and awareness wash over him, as if the ancient being could peer into the essence of humanity itself. Fear surged in his chest, but he did not step back. His voice was calm but firm. It will not harm him, she said almost to herself, because I am here and because he is with me. Took a deep breath, then we moved forward. The princess nodded and lifted her hands, energy spilling from her fingers in brilliant arcs. The creature stirred but did not attack. Instead, it allowed them to approach the core. The cavern pulsed around them, the walls reflecting their glow, their courage, their determination. Suddenly, the ground shivered violently. Rocks fell from the ceiling and the cavern trembled. The creature coiled defensively, but it did not strike, gritted her teeth, stepping closer to the glowing core. We are almost there, she said, voice steady despite exhaustion. We only need one step more. Moved beside her, adjusting his stance to protect her from falling debris, his hand found hers again. We'll do it together, he whispered. And then they did. Together they placed their hands on the glowing core. Energy surged outward, wrapping around them, testing their resolve, their courage, their trust. Felt the warmth of the creature's presence, the pulse of the mountain, and the glow of aura all at once. He realized the ancient being was not an enemy. It was a guardian, seeking proof of worthiness, and they were proving it. The energy around them shifted, calmer now. The creature coiled back, watching silently, no longer threatening but acknowledging. Its glow softened, and she exhaled, relief washing over her. You did it, said, voice barely audible over the thrum of the core. No, she corrected gently. We did it together. They stood side by side, hands still touching, breathing in unison. For the first time, felt the magnitude of what had happened. Not just surviving the mountain or facing an ancient guardian, but forging a bond that transcended worlds. The mountain trembled one last time, then stilled. The creature sank into the glowing core, almost melting into it, leaving the cavern calm, silent, and safe. Sai's met his, shining brighter than ever. You are mine, she whispered softly, not in demand, not in possession, but in recognition. And I am yours. His chest tightened, the weight of those words sinking deep. He realized that the journey had changed him forever. This human, who once believed courage was measured by action alone, now understood that trust, loyalty, and choice were the greatest strength of all. And in that quiet, glowing cavern, they stood together, human and alien princess, hearts beating in tandem, ready to face whatever the universe would throw next. The cavern was still. The pulse of the mountain slowed to a gentle rhythm like the creature itself was finally resting. And Princess stood together, shoulders brushing, hands entwined, breathing in the quiet that followed the storm of energy, fear, and courage. For a moment, they didn't speak. Words felt small compared to what had happened. Finally broke the silence, her voice soft and steady. You stayed with me, through every tremor, every trial, you didn't flinch. Shook his head almost in disbelief. I was following you, he said. You led us through this, you trusted me to be here, and that was enough. Her eyes glimmered, reflecting a mixture of relief, gratitude, and something deeper, a quiet fire that had been tempered by loss and loneliness. I chose you, she whispered, voice barely audible, yet every word carried weight. Not because you were strong, but because you were human. You stood when others might have turned. You risked yourself not for glory or orders, but because it was right. That is worth more than any army. Felt his chest tighten. Humans prided themselves on action, on courage in battle, yet this recognition, from an alien princess, from someone so far beyond his world, felt like a bond stronger than any medal, stronger than any victory he had ever earned. You're mine, said, stepping closer, her arms wrapping lightly but firmly around him again. Not just for protection this time, but for acknowledgement. Claim, trust. The kind that came from shared trials, from survival, from hearts that had chosen each other willingly. Placed his hands over hers. And I am yours, he whispered. Not because I have to be, but because I choose you too. They stood like that for several long moments. The glow of her skin bathed him in gentle light. The cavern, once alive with chaos and fear, now felt like a sanctuary. Even the ancient creature, coiled around the core of the mountain, watched silently, its massive eyes calm. It had tested them, judged them, and now accepted them. The proof of their courage was written not just in survival, but in trust and loyalty. The mountain around them shivered gently, almost in acknowledgement, tilted her head, a faint smile forming despite exhaustion. You saved me, she said, a whisper filled with awe. Not because I asked, not because it was your duty. You stayed because you were human. His throat tightened. He had spent his life doing what was expected of him, serving, protecting, following orders. But this, standing with, facing an ancient guardian, earning trust and forming a bond across worlds, was beyond any mission. This was something neither of them could have planned, yet both had lived. I'll always be here, he said quietly, his voice steady now, filled with resolve. No matter what comes next, I'll stay by your side. She rested her forehead against his chest, her arms tightening, a subtle but undeniable claim. Then I will never let go either, she whispered. This bond, it cannot be broken. The cavern seemed to pulse one last time, gentle and steady, as if the mountain itself recognized their unity. The creature, a being older than imagination, slowly retreated into the shadows, leaving the core glowing quietly, the threat past but the memory eternal. Realized that the true test was not of strength or speed, but of heart, and they had passed, together. His voice was soft but firm as she stepped back slightly, eyes never leaving his. You are mine, she said again, this time in a declaration, not a question. And I will claim you in every battle, every journey, every moment we have left, as my protector, as my partner, as my human. His lips curved into a smile, small but genuine. Then I am yours, he said again, and I will never let you face anything alone. For the first time since the mountain had tested them, they felt peace. Not idle peace, but the kind born of shared trials, mutual respect, and a bond that neither time nor fear nor the universe itself could undo. Together, human and alien princess, they turned toward the exit of the cavern. Outside, the sky was pale, the winds gentle, and the valley below still and waiting. They walked side by side, hands intertwined, hearts beating in quiet rhythm. Every step forward was a promise, every glance a vow, every breath a testament to courage, choice, and trust. And as they emerged into the light, the mountain behind them knew something profound. It was not just the alien princess who had claimed him. He had claimed himself, his courage, his heart, and in doing so had claimed her in return. The universe was vast and uncertain, but for the first time felt unshakable. Because somewhere between fear and hope, human and alien, battle and trust, they had found something no one could take away. And they would face everything together